wind howled through the black forest like a wounded animal. The moon hung low and red, like a bleeding eye staring over the valley. Every tree creaked. Every shadow seemed alive. A little girl, no older than 10, stepped out from the fog. Her name was Elara. Her face was pale, streaked with tears and mud. In her small hands, she held a wooden crossbow, the kind used by hunters to kill wolves. But tonight, she was hunting something far worse. Her boots sank in the cold mud as she walked toward a great stone castle that loomed above the valley, Castle Vargath, home of Lord Draven, the Alpha Vampire. Every villager feared to speak his name. They said he did not just drink blood, but also memories, leaving his victims hollow, forgetting who they were. Elara stopped at the broken gates. The smell of iron filled the air. 2 black crows perched on the gate spikes, watching her like guards of death. She lifted her lantern, and the trembling light danced on her pale face. "Father," she whispered, "I'm coming." Inside, the castle was silent. The corridors were long, cold, and lined with dusty portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow her. Her boots echoed like a drum in a tomb. Then a gust blew out her lantern. Darkness swallowed her whole. "Elara," a deep voice whispered from the shadows. She spun around, raising her crossbow. "Show yourself." Out of the darkness, a tall figure stepped forward. His skin was pale as moonlight. His eyes glowed faint red, Lord Draven. His cloak flowed like living smoke. "So small," he said softly, "and yet you came here alone." Her voice shook. "Why did you kill my father?" Draven tilted his head. "Your father? He was the hunter of Vargath. He protected us. You burned our home, I saw you." Draven's face grew calm. "Ah, you are Kale's daughter." Her eyes filled with tears. "You murdered him." Draven's voice deepened. "No, child. I freed him." "You lie!" she screamed and fired. The silver bolt struck his chest, but he didn't fall. He looked down at it, smiled, and slowly pulled it out. The wound closed before her eyes. "Silver," he said quietly. "A brave choice." Elara stepped back. "Stay away." "Do you even know what your father became?" Draven asked. "Do you know what he did before I found him?" "He was a hero," she cried. Draven's red eyes burned. "He hunted what he swore to protect. He spilled forbidden blood, the blood of the sacred line." "Liar!" she shouted, and fired again, but the bolt turned to ash mid-air. Draven raised his hand. An unseen force lifted her off the ground. "I did not kill your father," he whispered. "I saved his soul." Then everything went black. When Elara woke, she was lying in a stone chamber, lit by dozens of candles. Her crossbow was gone. In the center of the room stood a black glass coffin. She stepped closer, then froze. Inside lay her father. His eyes were open but empty. His skin was pale, marked by a dark sigil on his chest, the mark of a vampire. Elara screamed. The echo carried through the castle like a dying soul's cry. The candles flickered around Elara, their flames bending toward her as if pulled by fear. The black glass coffin still glimmered in the half-dark, and inside it lay her father, pale, still, marked forever by the vampire's curse. Elara pressed her palm against the glass. It was colder than stone, colder than death. "Father," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Wake up, please." A low hum filled the chamber. The air thickened. Then, softly, she heard his voice, not from outside, but inside her head. "Elara, run, before the blood moon wakes," she gasped, stepping back. "Father, is that you?" The coffin began to shake. Thin red cracks spread across its surface, glowing brighter each second. A drop of blood seeped through the glass and landed on the floor with a hiss. The smell of iron grew stronger. "Elara." The voice was not her father's this time. It came from behind her. She turned, and there was Lord Draven, his eyes glowing faintly, his face unreadable. You shouldn't have touched the coffin, he said softly. What did you do to him? She cried. Draven looked at the broken glass and sighed. I saved him from a fate worse than death. You killed him, she shouted. I ended his suffering, Draven answered. He was turning into something neither human nor vampire. The curse was consuming him. Elara shook her head. You're lying. Then see the truth for yourself, he whispered, raising a hand. Before she could move, darkness swallowed her vision. She saw her father again, but not as she remembered him. He rode through the forest, under a red moon, chasing a figure cloaked in mist. Arrows whistled through the night. The cries of children echoed from the shadows. He fired again. A small shape fell, a vampire child. Elara screamed inside the vision. Her father dismounted, horrified at what he had done. The figure he had chased stepped forward, Draven, kneeling beside the dying girl. The image faded. Elara dropped to her knees, shaking. No, that can't be true. Draven's voice was gentle. Your father hunted creatures who had already sworn peace. He broke the oath of the hunters. The sacred bloodline you feared. He spilled it first. Her tears fell on the cold stone floor. Then what did you do to him? I gave him a choice, Draven said quietly. Die as a man, or live as what he hated. He asked me to end it before the curse took his mind. Elara looked up, eyes burning. You turned him. I tried to save him, Draven answered. But some souls cannot be saved. The coffin cracked open completely. Glass shattered across the floor. A pale hand reached out from within. Her father sat up, his eyes glowing silver. Chains fell from his body as he breathed in a rasping hiss. His teeth lengthened into fangs, his veins black as ink. Elara, he groaned. She stumbled back. Father? Draven drew his sword. He's awake. Her father's voice changed, deep and hollow. Why did you come back? I came to save you, she cried. He smiled a cold, twisted smile. Then run, before I forget your name. He lunged. Elara screamed, but Draven stepped between them. His blade met claw, light against darkness. Sparks lit the room. The battle shook the walls. Candles burst into smoke. Elara covered her ears, trembling. Then, silence. When the dust settled, the coffin lay in pieces. Draven knelt on the floor, breathing heavily. Her father was gone. Only a single silver bolt, smeared with dark blood, lay where he had stood. Elara picked it up. The blood shimmered faintly, like liquid moonlight. Draven spoke without looking at her. He's free now. She clenched her fist around the bolt. No, this isn't over. I'll end this curse myself. Draven finally met her gaze. If you follow this path, you'll find more than truth. You'll find what created me. Elara's voice steadied. Then that's exactly what I'll find. Outside, the blood moon rose higher, and the wind howled again like the forest itself was warning her. The night of the crossbow had ended, but the war of blood had only begun. The forest was darker than ever, as if the trees themselves held their breath. Fog rolled across the path, whispering around the stones. Somewhere behind the mountains, the first bell of midnight began to ring deep, slow, and full of warning. Elara ran through the mud, clutching the silver bolt she had taken from her father's ashes. Each time the bell rang, it felt like the world itself was counting down to something terrible. Her lungs burned. Her heart felt ready to burst. But she didn't stop. She could still hear him, that half-beast, half-man voice calling her name through the woods. Elara. The sound came from everywhere at once, soft, like her father's voice, but twisted, full of hunger. She tripped over a tree root and fell hard. The bolt flew from her hand. When she looked up, she saw dozens of shapes rising from the mist, figures made of bone and smoke, eyes burning cold blue. She had stumbled into the graveyard of the old hunters. Their rusted weapons were still in their hands, their faces half-rotted beneath cracked helmets. As the second bell rang, one of them spoke in a whisper that made her skin crawl. "Child of betrayal, your blood remembers what your tongue forgets." Elara scrambled backward. "Stay away." But the dead moved faster than the living. Skeletal hands clawed through the mud. One grabbed her ankle. She screamed, kicking free and running toward the trees. The third bell tolled. Ahead, through the fog, she saw the remains of an old chapel, its tower broken, its cross hanging sideways. Light flickered from within. She pushed through the door. Inside, the air smelled of dust and candle wax. Broken pews lay across the floor. At the far end, a cracked statue of an angel leaned forward as if it, too, had fallen from grace. Elara fell to her knees and whispered, "Please, anyone, help me." From the shadows behind the altar, a calm voice answered, "You are not alone." She turned quickly. It was Draven. His pale face was streaked with blood, his cloak torn. "You followed me?" she asked. "I saved you," he said. "The dead were coming for your blood." "I didn't ask you to," she snapped. He smiled sadly. "No one ever does." The fourth bell rang. The sound echoed through the chapel walls. Draven stepped closer. "Every toll wakes the curse within your father's soul. By the 12th bell, he will no longer be himself." Elara shook her head. "There must be a way to stop it." "There is," Draven said quietly, "but it demands a price." He looked at the bolt still clutched in her hand. "That arrow carries the blood of the first Alpha. Only it can pierce the heart of what your father has become." She froze. "You want me to kill him?" "If you don't," he whispered, "the curse will spread to every living soul." Her breath came in short gasps. "No, I can't do that." "Then you doom us all." The fifth bell rang, and with it came a roar outside, shaking the earth. Dust fell from the ceiling. The doors of the chapel shuddered. Draven drew his sword. "He's here." Elara turned. Through the cracks of the door, she saw a figure walking through the fog, her father, but twisted beyond recognition. His skin glowed with silver fire, his mouth full of fangs. "Father," she whispered. The sixth bell rang. The door burst open. The creature stepped inside, wings of shadow spreading wide. The ground split beneath his feet. Draven charged. Steel met claw. Sparks filled the air. Elara hid behind the altar, clutching the bolt so tightly her hand bled. "Run!" Draven shouted. But she didn't. She watched, frozen, as the monster that had been her father struck Draven to the floor. The 7th, 8th, and 9th bells rang one after another. The sound made the world tremble. Elara rose slowly. "Father, please, remember me." For a heartbeat, his silver eyes softened. His mouth formed her name. "Elara." Draven groaned, lifting his sword again. "Now. Do it now." The 10th bell rang. Elara raised the crossbow with shaking hands. "Forgive me." The 11th bell struck. She fired. The silver bolt flashed through the air and sank deep into his heart just as the 12th bell tolled. Light burst across the chapel, white and red together. The creature screamed, but there was peace in the sound. When the light faded, he was gone, nothing left but ashes and silence. Elara dropped to her knees, sobbing. Draven limped toward her and laid a hand on her shoulder. "The curse is broken," he said quietly. She shook her head. "No, I heard something inside the light. It said, he will return." Draven's expression darkened. "Then we will be ready." Outside, the bells stopped. But far away, under the fading moon, a new sound began, the cry of a child. The world was silent after the last bell. Even the wind had stopped. The air felt thick, heavy, and full of secrets. Elara knelt in the ruins of the chapel, the silver crossbow beside her. Her father's ashes covered the floor, glowing faintly red in the dying candlelight. She touched the dust with shaking hands. "Father," she whispered, "I did what you asked. Please, rest now." Draven stood at the doorway, his sword lowered, his pale face unreadable. "The curse is gone," he said quietly. But even he didn't sound certain. Then, the ashes moved. At first, Elara thought it was the wind, but there was no wind. The tiny specks began to swirl faster, glowing brighter until they formed a small mound of light. She stumbled back. "What's happening?" Draven's eyes widened. "No, this shouldn't be possible." The ashes pulsed once, twice, then burst into blinding light. Elara covered her face. When the glow faded, something lay in the center of the broken floor. A baby. He was small, silent, and covered in ash. His skin shone faintly, his tiny fingers curling like smoke. Elara gasped. "Father?" Draven stepped closer, blade still drawn. "That is not your father." She picked up the child carefully, cradling him in her arms. "He's alive. He's born of the curse," Draven said darkly. "You don't understand what this means." Elara looked down at the baby. His eyes opened. Not red, not silver, but glowing gold, bright and calm like sunlight trapped in a mirror. For a moment, all fear left her. He smiled. "He's innocent," she said softly. "Innocent?" Draven's tone was sharp. "The ashes of a cursed soul and the light of the blood moon made him. He carries both sides, light and darkness. That is not a child. It is a seed of power." The baby began to cry. His voice was small but strange, like a whisper and a thunderclap mixed together. The ground trembled. Draven gritted his teeth. "We need to leave. Now." "Why?" Elara asked, holding the baby tighter. "The sound of that cry can wake the dead again," Draven warned. "This place will not protect you." He reached for the baby, but Elara stepped back. "Don't touch him." Draven's voice hardened. "You have no idea what you're holding." "I don't care," she said. "If he was born from my father, then he's my responsibility." Draven sighed. "Then his fate will be yours too." Before he could say more, a thunderous crack split the roof. Light and dust rained down. The ground shook violently. "Elara, move!" Draven shouted, pulling her toward the doorway. They ran as the chapel collapsed behind them. A final burst of flame rose into the sky, then everything went still again. They reached the river by dawn. The water shimmered red under the fading moonlight. Elara sat on a rock, washing the ash from the child's face. He blinked, staring up at the rising sunday. "What should I name him?" she whispered. Draven stood nearby, watching her closely. "Names have power. Don't give him one unless you are ready to bind him to your destiny." "Then I'll call him Hope," she said softly, "because I have nothing else." Draven's expression softened, almost like he remembered something long lost. "You sound like your mother." Elara turned to him sharply. "You knew her?" Draven nodded. "She was the last moonkeeper, protector of the veil between worlds. She saved my life once." "My mother?" Elara whispered. "She died when I was small." He looked away. "No, she disappeared the night your father broke his oath. She knew this day would come." Elara's voice trembled. "You're lying." Draven reached into his cloak and pulled out a small silver locket. Inside was a faded painting, a woman with green eyes and dark hair. Elara gasped. "That's her." "She was powerful," Draven said softly. "But she loved a mortal hunter, and love broke the balance. You are her last gift to this world." Elara's eyes filled with tears. "So, I was never meant to exist." "You were meant to restore what they broke," Draven replied. "And this child is the proof that balance can still be born." The baby yawned, golden eyes shining in the early light. But as the sun climbed higher, The gold in his eyes flickered for a moment, turning red. Elara froze. Draven. He saw it too. The Alpha's blood is still inside him. Then we'll fight it, she said firmly. Together. Draven shook his head. You don't understand. The Alpha's spirit may not rest. If he finds a vessel strong enough. He looked at the child. He could return. Elara stood, clutching the baby close. He won't. Not while I live. Draven stared at her for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. Then we go north, to the sanctum of the Moon Keepers. Your mother's temple still stands there. Maybe it holds the answers. The wind turned cold, carrying the faint sound of distant whispers. Elara looked up at the blood moon fading into dawn. If the Alpha returns, he'll find me waiting, far away, in the ruins of the chapel they had escaped. The fire flickered once more. The ashes glowed faintly, and a deep, unseen voice murmured through the smoke. He will return. In the blood of hope. For 3 days, the valley stayed dark. The sun rose but gave no warmth. The rivers ran quiet as though even nature feared what had happened. Elara and Draven traveled north, through broken forests and snowy fields, carrying the baby wrapped in her cloak. The child slept most of the time, peaceful yet glowing faintly under the red moonlight. On the 3rd night, Elara woke from a dream she could not understand. In the dream, a woman dressed in white stood under a blood-red sky and whispered, Elara, the key lies in the stars. The curse is older than you think. When she opened her eyes, Draven was sitting nearby, sharpening his sword. You were talking in your sleep, he said quietly. What did I say? He looked at her for a long moment. You said her name, your mother's. Elara touched the silver locket around her neck. I don't even remember her face. You will, Draven said. Soon, they reached the mountain pass at dawn. Before them stood a massive gate carved into the rock, covered with moon-shaped symbols. Faint blue light pulsed from the carvings. Draven brushed snow off an old inscription. The sanctum of the Moon Keepers, he said. This is where your mother made her last stand. The gate opened by itself as Elara approached, the light responding to the mark on her chest. The wind turned colder as they entered. Inside, the air smelled of stone, dust, and forgotten prayers. Moonlight fell through cracks in the roof, lighting up a grand, circular hall. At its center stood a crystal altar glowing with silver fire. Elara stepped closer. This place feels alive. Draven nodded. The sanctum remembers every keeper who ever walked here. She laid the baby on the altar. The silver light wrapped around him. And for a moment, she saw visions, her father's face, her mother's eyes, and the blood moon reflected in both. Then a soft, familiar voice filled the chamber. My daughter, you have come home. Elara turned sharply. Standing before her was a spirit of light, shaped like a woman. Her eyes glowed green, her smile sad and gentle. Mother? Elara whispered. The spirit nodded. I am what remains of her. Tears filled Elara's eyes. Why did you leave me? I never left, her mother said. I became part of the veil, the barrier between life and shadow. When your father broke the oath, the balance shattered. I stayed to hold what little remained. Elara shook her head. Father was only trying to protect us. Her mother's expression darkened. He killed what was sacred, and his blood awakened the Alpha. That is why I sealed this place, so that the next Moonkeeper could finish what I began. The next Moonkeeper? Her mother stepped closer. You, my child. Elara stepped back, stunned. I'm not like you. I don't even understand this power. Her mother raised her hand. The mark on Elara's chest glowed brighter. You carry both my light and your father's blood. That makes you more powerful than either of us. The baby stirred on the altar, his eyes opening gold, flickering to red for a split second. The spirit's voice hardened. He is not meant for this world. Elara shielded him protectively. No, he's innocent. Innocent, yes, her mother said softly, but also cursed. The Alpha's soul sleeps within him, waiting to rise again when the moon bleeds twice. Elara's voice trembled. Then tell me how to stop it. The ritual of severance, her mother said. Only it can separate his spirit from the curse. But the price is your own blood. You must give yourself to the moon. Draven stepped forward quickly. No, there must be another way. There isn't, the spirit replied. The balance must be restored. If not, the Alpha will rise stronger than ever, not as a monster, but as a god. Elara looked from her mother to the baby. If I give my life, will he be free? Her mother nodded. He will live as human. The curse will end. Draven's voice was heavy. And you'll die. Elara smiled sadly. Maybe that's what I was born for. The spirit reached out, touching her daughter's cheek. If you do this, I will finally rest. But if you fail, the light itself will die. Before Elara could answer, the ground trembled violently. Cracks spread across the floor. The moonlight in the ceiling turned red. Draven drew his sword. Something's coming. A loud roar echoed from the mountains outside, deep, angry, and filled with pain. The spirit gasped. He has found us! The second Alpha has risen. The baby began to cry. His golden eyes glowed bright red. Elara held him close. Mother, what do I do? Her mother's voice broke into a whisper. Run to the Valley of Stone. Finish the ritual there. I will hold him as long as I can. The spirit raised her arms. A wave of silver fire filled the room, forming a barrier. Elara, go! Draven shouted, grabbing her arm. Together, they ran through the collapsing temple, the spirit's fading voice echoing behind them. Remember, my daughter, the moon sees all, but only love can choose the light. The mountains groaned like living beasts as Elara and Draven ran through the falling snow. Behind them, the sanctum of the Moonkeepers was collapsing, stones breaking apart, moonlight twisting red, and her mother's fading light vanishing into the storm. Elara clutched the baby to her chest. He no longer cried. His golden eyes stared upward, glowing brighter with each step they took. Draven stopped suddenly, looking back. The spirit's power is gone, he said. She can't hold him anymore. Then we keep running, Elara said. We finished the ritual at the valley. The sky rumbled above them. Lightning flashed red across the clouds. From far behind came a roar that shook the world deeper than thunder, colder than death. Draven turned pale. He's awake. The second Alpha? Elara whispered. He nodded grimly. And he's coming for what belongs to him, the heart. Elara held the baby tighter. Then he'll have to go through me. Draven looked at her with something like sorrow. He already is. By the time they reached the valley, the sky had turned completely crimson. The ground was cracked, glowing with faint golden veins that pulsed like living blood. In the center stood a broken stone, circled the remains of an ancient altar. This is where it must happen, Draven said, his breath turning white in the freezing air. Elara laid the baby in the center of the circle. Tell me what to do. He opened a small iron book, the one her mother had given him before vanishing into the storm. Its pages were written in blood and moonlight. You must speak the words of severance, he said. But the blood that binds him is yours. Once you start, you cannot stop. Elara looked at the baby, his small chest rising and falling, light glowing under his skin. If I fail? Draven's voice was low. Then the world ends before dawn. She nodded. Then let's not fail. The wind died suddenly. The air turned heavy. A dark shape began to form in the clouds above vast wings of shadow stretching across the valley. 2 red eyes opened in the sky. The second Alpha descended. His body was made of smoke and flame, yet his steps cracked the earth. His voice rolled through the mountains like thunder. You carry my blood, child of the Veil. Give it back, and I will spare your soul. Elara stood her ground. You'll spare nothing. You feed on pain and call it power. The Alpha laughed. Power is truth. Your mother's light burned because she feared the dark. But you He pointed at her. You are both. You are my perfect vessel. Draven drew his sword, its silver edge trembling with light. Stay behind me. Elara shook her head. This is my fight. The Alpha raised a hand, and the wind exploded. Draven was thrown across the valley. Elara fell to her knees, clutching the ground. The baby began to glow again, his small cries turning into a strange, deep hum that vibrated through the stones. The Alpha's voice filled her mind. Let him be my flesh again, and you will see your parents in paradise. For a moment, she almost believed him. The vision appeared before her, her father smiling, her mother alive, the sun shining. But then she saw their eyes, both red, both empty. She screamed and thrust her hand into the glowing cracks of the earth. No more lies. Light burst from her palm, white and gold, mixing with blood. The baby's glow turned pure gold again, his cries filling the air. The Alpha staggered. What are you doing? I'm ending you. Draven crawled to her side, holding his sword like a staff. He's too strong. You can't hold him. Elara's voice broke but didn't stop. Then I'll burn with him. The golden light spread from her body across the valley. The Alpha roared, his form twisting and breaking apart. But even as his shadow dissolved, part of him struck back a beam of dark fire that pierced Elara's chest. She screamed. The world went white. Draven shouted her name, running toward her, but he couldn't reach her. The golden fire consumed everything. When the light faded, Elara was lying on the ground, trembling but alive. Her hair glowed faintly silver, her skin pale as the moon. The baby was gone. Draven knelt beside her. Where is he? Her voice was weak. He's inside me. Draven's eyes widened. You mean? She nodded slowly. The Alpha's spirit. It couldn't return to him. The ritual bound it to me. He looked at her with awe and fear. You've become the vessel. Elara sat up, clutching her chest. No. I've become the prison. The wind howled again, but softer now, almost peaceful. Snow began to fall. The valley that had glowed with blood slowly turned white. Draven sheathed his sword and knelt. Then, what happens now? Elara looked at the horizon where the red clouds were fading into morning. Now, we wait for the next moon. Draven frowned. You think he'll try again? Her golden eyes dimmed, replaced by a calm silver glow. He's part of me now. If he wakes again, I'll face him from inside. Draven touched her shoulder gently. Then I'll stay. You won't face it alone. Elara gave him a tired smile. You never do. Far above them, the last of the red light disappeared from the sky. For the first time in years, the moon shone white. But deep beneath the frozen ground, a faint heartbeat echoed not Elara's, not Draven's, something ancient, waiting. For days, the world was silent again. Snow covered the valley where the battle had ended. Nothing moved except the wind and two lonely figures making their way down the mountain, Elara and Draven. Elara's steps were slow, her eyes half closed from exhaustion. Each breath left a faint silver mist in the cold air. She felt something inside her chest, not pain, but a slow, heavy heartbeat that wasn't hers. Draven watched her carefully. You haven't slept in 3 nights, he said. I can't, she whispered. When I close my eyes, I see him. The Alpha? She nodded. He's inside me now. I can hear him whisper sometimes. He calls me Daughter of Twilight. Draven's face hardened. He's testing you. He wants you to lose control. Elara stopped walking and looked at the sky. The clouds above were beginning to change color again, a faint red shimmer bleeding through the gray. The blood moon is returning, she said softly. It's too early, Draven muttered. It should be another year before the next rise. Then something is wrong. They found shelter in an old watchtower near the edge of the valley. The stones were cracked and cold, but at least it stood against the wind. Draven lit a small fire, while Elara sat near the window, staring out into the endless white. The silence pressed down on them. Only the distant sound of dripping water broke it. Finally, Draven said, "There's something I never told you." Elara looked up. "What is it?" "The Alpha wasn't created by darkness alone," he said slowly. "He was once a guardian like your mother. He was the first protector of the Veil, before the curse twisted him. When he fell, his power broke into fragments. One became light, one became shadow. And now both are inside me," she whispered. Draven nodded. "That's why the moon reacts to you. You're not just a keeper anymore. You're the balance itself." Elara laughed bitterly. "Balance? I can't even sleep without hearing his voice." "You're stronger than him," Draven said firmly. "Your mother believed it. So do I." She turned away. "What if she was wrong?" "Then we die trying," he replied. That night, the voice came again. Soft, deep, echoing inside her head. "Elara, why do you fight me? We could end the suffering together." She clutched her chest. "Leave me alone. You think they deserve saving? These humans? These fragile souls? They will only betray you, as they betrayed me." She covered her ears, shaking. "Stop!" The fire flickered wildly. Draven woke instantly, his hand on his sword. "What's happening?" Elara's eyes glowed gold and red at once. "He's inside me. He's trying to take control." Draven reached for her. "Elara, listen to my voice. You're here, not him." Her breathing grew harsh. The room darkened around her, as if shadows were leaking from her skin. The Alpha's voice laughed through her mouth. "She can't hold me forever, Hunter. You will watch her burn like the rest." Draven pressed his sword's silver edge against her hand. "Then you'll burn with her." The blade glowed. Smoke rose from her skin, and the laughter stopped. Elara collapsed forward, trembling. "It's okay," Draven whispered, catching her. "You're stronger than him." Her eyes dimmed back to normal. For now. When morning came, the fire was dead, and so was the peace. A faint red glow spread across the horizon. The blood moon was rising again. Elara stood outside the tower, feeling the strange warmth in her veins. Her shadow stretched longer than it should have. The heartbeat in her chest pulsed louder. One beat hers, one the Alpha's. Draven joined her, eyes fixed on the sky. "If the moon rises fully tonight, the seal will break. Then we stop it before that happens." He shook his head. "You can't fight the moon, Elara." "I can fight what it wakes," she said coldly. By dusk, the valley began to tremble. The snow melted in rivers of steam. The ground cracked open, and a low hum spread through the air. Draven unsheathed his sword. "He's trying to force his body back." Elara closed her eyes. "Then we end it now." She walked to the center of the valley, light glowing under her feet. Her voice rose half chant, half prayer. "By the blood of my father, by the light of my mother, I bind what should not live." The wind screamed. Flames burst from the cracks. From the smoke, a figure began to rise tall, red-eyed, made of shadow and gold fire. The Alpha's spirit had formed again, half within her, half outside. He smiled. "You cannot kill what you are." Elara's eyes burned bright. "Then I'll kill what I was." She raised her hands, and light exploded from her chest. The valley filled with white fire. Draven shielded his eyes, shouting her name. When the light faded, Elara was gone. Only silence remained, and the blood moon still rising. Draven fell to his knees. No. But then he heard it, a faint heartbeat coming from the ground. The snow cracked, and a single golden feather drifted upward, glowing softly. He picked it up. The feather pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Draven looked to the sky and whispered, "She's still fighting." The snow stopped falling. The valley lay silent under the blood moon's crimson glow. Draven stood alone, holding the golden feather that pulsed faintly in his hand. The warmth of it felt alive, like a heartbeat trapped inside a single piece of light. "Elara," he whispered. The wind carried her name away. He looked around. The ground was scorched, and the air still shimmered with the echo of her power. There was no sign of her body, only the marks of light carved into the stones, forming a perfect circle. Then, the feather burned brighter. It rose from his palm, floating in front of him. Draven took a slow step back. "Elara?" he asked quietly. A soft voice answered from the air. "Draven." He froze. It was her voice, faint but clear. "Elara, where are you?" "I don't know," the voice said. "It's dark and warm. I feel the Alpha here with me." Draven clenched his fist. "Then fight him." "I'm trying," she whispered. "But he's not what I thought he was." "What do you mean?" "I see his memories. Before he was the Alpha, he was a guardian, like my mother said. He wanted to protect the Veil. He only fell because the humans betrayed him." Draven's voice grew sharp. "Don't let him trick you again. He's using guilt to control you." "I'm not sure anymore," she said sadly. "Maybe he and I are not enemies. Maybe we're two halves of the same wound." The feather dimmed. "Elara, stay with me." But the light vanished. Draven sank to his knees. For the first time, he felt truly alone. The snow had melted into gray mud, and the sky burned red like an endless wound. He stayed there for hours, until a faint glow appeared on the horizon, not red, but white, soft as dawn. From the center of the light, a figure began to take shape. He rose instantly, sword in hand. It was Elara. She walked barefoot across the valley, her hair glowing faintly silver. Her eyes no longer gold or red, but both, swirling like molten sunlight. "Elara?" he said cautiously. She smiled faintly. "You waited. You survived." "Not exactly," she said softly. "I'm not just me anymore." Draven stepped closer. "What are you?" "The Alpha spirit and mine are no longer separate. We've become one. I hold his rage and he holds my light. Together, we are something new." He lowered his sword. "That power could destroy everything. It could also fix everything," she said. Draven looked at her carefully. "Are you still Elara?" She smiled sadly. "I don't know. They made camp near the old ruins where they first met." Elara sat beside the fire, staring into the flames. The firelight reflected in her eyes, red on one side, gold on the other. "Do you trust me, Draven?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. "I want to." "Then believe me when I say this. The curse was never just his. It was the world's. The Alpha became a monster because people wanted monsters to blame. They needed darkness to explain their fear." Draven shook his head. "That doesn't excuse what he did." "It doesn't," Elara agreed. "But maybe if I understand him, I can end what he started. Not with death, but with balance." "Balance?" She nodded. "Light and dark can't destroy each other. They have to exist together. My mother tried to erase the shadow. My father tried to kill it. I'll try to heal it." Draven looked at her with a mix of awe and fear. "And if it consumes you?" Elara's gaze didn't waver. "Then promise me you'll finish what I can't." He nodded slowly. "I swear." That night, Elara dreamed again. She was standing in a field of white flowers under a calm silver moon. Across from her stood the Alpha, tall, silent, no longer monstrous. His eyes were the same shade of gold as hers. He spoke softly. "You carry my soul. You could destroy me, or you could understand me." "Why should I?" she asked. "You caused endless pain." "I was pain," he said, "created by their fear. But if you truly seek balance, you must see the truth." He raised his hand, and suddenly the flowers turned to ash. The sky split open, showing cities burning, rivers of blood, and humans screaming in terror. "This is the world they built," he said. "A world that worships light and denies its own shadow." Elara shook her head. "Then I'll rebuild it." He smiled faintly. "Then I will stand beside you not as a god, but as your strength." When she woke, dawn had come. Draven was asleep, beside the dying fire. Elara stood quietly, watching the sunrise. For the first time, the sky looked peaceful, soft, pink and gold instead of blood red. She whispered to herself, "The Alpha was never the end. He was the beginning." As they packed their things, Draven asked, "Where will we go now?" "East," she said. "To the Citadel of Shadows. That's where the veil is weakest. If I'm to heal this world, I must start there." Draven tightened his cloak. "Then I'll follow you to the end." She smiled. "No, not to the end, to the balance." The wind carried her words into the distance as they began their journey toward the rising sun, light and darkness, walking side by side. But deep within Elara's chest, the Alpha's voice whispered one last warning. "Remember, child of twilight, even balance casts a shadow." The road to the east was long and empty. The snow gave way to gray fields, and the mountains behind them disappeared under clouds. Elara and Draven walked in silence, their cloaks heavy with dust. For days, no birds sang, no wind moved. It was as if the earth itself was holding its breath. At night, when the stars appeared, Elara would stop and look up. Her golden-silver eyes reflected the sky like mirrors. Draven often watched her quietly. He could feel the strange power inside her calm one moment, burning the next. On the fifth night, a storm began to rise. But this storm was not made of clouds. It was made of whispers. The air shimmered, and faces appeared in the wind, pale, hollow-eyed, voices calling her name. "Elara, child of balance. You cannot walk both paths." She covered her ears. "Stop it!" Draven pulled her close. "Ignore them. They're only echoes." But she could feel the Alpha inside her, reacting, his voice deep and dark inside her mind. "They're not lying. The Citadel doesn't want you, Elara. It wants what's inside you." She closed her eyes, fighting the whispers. "Then they'll have to take both." By morning, the storm had passed. In the distance, rising from a black plain, stood the Citadel of Shadows. It was not made of stone, but of obsidian glass that reflected no light. Towers rose like broken spears into the blood-colored sky. The air around it smelled of ash and old magic. Draven's jaw tightened. No living soul has entered that place and returned. "Then it's a good thing I'm not just a soul anymore," Elara said softly. They approached the great doors. Symbols burned faintly on the surface, half moon, half sun, connected by a single crack. Elara placed her palm on it. The doors opened with a sound like metal screaming. Inside, the light faded completely. The Citadel swallowed them whole. The interior was endless. Corridors twisted like veins of a sleeping beast. The walls pulsed faintly, as if alive. Elara felt something pulling her deeper. "He's here," she whispered. Draven gripped his sword tighter. "Who?" "The Alpha, or what's left of him." They followed the sound of dripping water until they entered a vast hall. At the center stood a black throne. Around it, thousands of candles burned with blue fire. On the throne sat a figure tall, robed, his face hidden beneath a hood. "Elara of the moon," the voice said. "You bring the light into my home." "Who are you?" she demanded. The figure lifted its head. His eyes glowed red and gold. "I am what remains of your enemy, and your reflection." Draven stepped forward. "You're not real." The figure smiled. "Aren't we all the dreams of something greater?" Elara's heart pounded. She could feel his presence inside her chest, echoing with his words. "You're the Alpha," she whispered. "Not anymore," he said. I am what's left when power forgets mercy. And you are the only one who can end this story. She raised her hands. Then I will. But he shook his head. No, Elara, not by killing me. By understanding me. Draven looked furious. Don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. Elara hesitated. The Alpha's voice inside her head spoke softly. You can't destroy me without destroying yourself. We are bound. Her breath quickened. The floor beneath her cracked. Streams of light burst upward from the stone. Draven shouted her name, but she didn't hear him. She saw visions again, the Alpha's memories. He had once stood where she stood, now guarding the veil, protecting the living from the darkness beyond. He was noble once, until men feared his power. They betrayed him, burned his temple, and left him cursed. When she opened her eyes, tears rolled down her face. I understand now, she said quietly. You were never evil. You were broken. The figure smiled faintly. Then, heal me. How? By becoming whole, he said. Let go of your fear. Accept the darkness, and the light will follow. Draven grabbed her arm. If you do this, he'll consume you. She looked at him sadly. Maybe that's the only way balance can exist. Elara. But she stepped forward. The light in her chest glowed so brightly, it blinded him. She placed her hand on the Alpha's heart. A scream filled the hall, hers and his together. Gold and crimson lights swirled, filling the citadel with a storm of fire. The obsidian walls melted, turning into mirrors that reflected every soul ever lost to the curse. Then, silence. When the light faded, the throne was empty. The Alpha was gone. Elara stood at the center, glowing softly. Draven ran to her. Are you? She turned. Her eyes were calm. It's done. He's part of me now, not as a voice, but as a memory. He searched her face. Are you still you? I think so, she said softly. But I finally understand what my mother meant. Balance doesn't mean peace. It means truth. Draven sheathed his sword. Then what now? Elara looked up. The ceiling of the citadel was gone. Above them, the blood moon was fading, turning white once more. Now, she said, we go home. The world was quiet again. The blood moon had faded from the sky, leaving only a pale silver glow over the valley. The rivers flowed clean for the first time in years, and the forests that once bled red were now covered in frost and calm light. Elara and Draven stood at the edge of the mountain where the citadel of shadows had once stood. Now, there was only a crater filled with mist, the ghost of everything that had happened. Draven looked at her. It's over, isn't it? Elara didn't answer. Her eyes were half gold, half silver, glowing faintly in the dawn light. It's never truly over, she said softly. Balance isn't something you win. It's something you keep. She took a deep breath, and her chest pulsed with gentle light, not burning, not angry, but calm. He's quiet now, she whispered. The Alpha? Draven asked. She nodded. He's still there, but I think he's resting. Maybe he's finally at peace. Draven's eyes softened. And you? Elara smiled faintly. I don't know yet. Maybe I will be too. One day. They stood together in silence, watching the first rays of dawn climb over the mountains. A few weeks passed. The villages that once lived in fear of the night slowly returned to life. The people built fires again, sang songs, and dared to look at the moon without trembling. Sometimes, they saw a strange glow in the sky, a faint golden streak that moved like a falling star. They called it the Keeper's Light. They said it protected travelers, guided lost souls, and frightened away the dark. But only Draven knew the truth. He had built a small cottage at the edge of the forest, where the mountain met the river. Every night, he sat outside, sharpening his sword and looking at the sky. And sometimes, when the wind blew softly, he heard her voice. Draven! He would close his eyes and smile. You're watching, aren't you? Always. One night, many months later, the moon turned red again. Not bright, not cursed, just red enough to remind the world of what it had survived. Draven felt it immediately. The air changed. The earth trembled lightly beneath his boots. He looked up at the sky. Elara! The glow appeared again, a faint golden light, descending slowly through the clouds. It landed before him, soft and silent, like a falling feather. When the light faded, she was standing there. Elara, he breathed, eyes wide. She smiled. You didn't think I'd let you grow old alone, did you? He took a slow step toward her. How? I told you balance never ends, she said. The light can't exist without shadow. When I accepted both, I became something else. He looked at her, the same face, the same eyes, but now full of peace. You're not human anymore. No, she said gently. But I'm not a monster either. She reached out her hand, and he took it. Her touch was warm, almost alive. Come with me, Draven. There's another world beyond this one that still needs guarding. The veil is thin, and someone has to protect it. He looked at his sword, then at her glowing hand. I've spent a lifetime fighting, he said quietly. Maybe it's time to fight for something better. She smiled. Then let's go together. The ground around them began to shimmer. The river glowed with golden light. The stars above spun slowly, aligning into a perfect circle. A bridge of silver formed from the mountain's edge, leading into the sky, the path to the veil. Draven looked back one last time at the earth, below the quiet forests, the sleeping villages, the peaceful moon. They'll be safe now? They will, Elara said softly. Because darkness will always exist. But now, it listens to the light. Together, they stepped onto the bridge. Their figures glowed brighter as they rose higher, until they became two beams of gold and silver, merging into the stars. The bridge faded. The night returned to stillness. And then something new happened. The moon, which had always been divided half light, half shadow, became whole. A perfect circle of silver and gold. The people below woke and looked at the sky. They saw the moon shining brighter than it ever had before, and they whispered her name, Elara of the moon. And though no one could prove it, they swore that, on quiet nights, two figures could still be seen standing on the glowing horizon, a woman of light and a man of shadow, watching the world they had saved. Epilogue. The legend of balance centuries later. The story became legend. Children grew up hearing tales of the girl who pointed a crossbow at a vampire and changed the fate of the world. They said she was brave enough to face death, wise enough to forgive it, and strong enough to turn even darkness into light. Some called her the Moon Keeper. Others called her the Daughter of Twilight. But those who truly believed whispered her real name, the one that carried both love and power. Elara, the balance of the blood and the light. And high above, under the eternal moon, a faint heartbeat still echoed, steady, peaceful, and eternal.